I will remove the waiting room. I'll let them all in.
Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in 1 minute. We're just letting everyone in. Get comfortable. Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good, good, good. Yeah, this is very exciting.
I'm glad you're excited. Thank you so much for helping us out with it. I appreciate it.
And we're all working together, right, to help our youth and families and communities and do what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. How did Kenara? Okay, just like it sounds, the way okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, Tara, your colleagues aren't with you today?
No, it's just me and my colleague Sarah's here.
Oh, about those colleagues. I'm talking about your babies.
Oh,
or your baby.
She's downstairs with her dad. I'm like, here's all the snacks, here's puzzles, keep her quiet.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Lisa Davis just started to use that. Be like, I'm here with my employee.
Yes.
I'm here with my partner.
All right, it looks like we have mostly everyone's in here. Andrew, I just sent you an email, so let me know. Clearly you got it, but I just need the conflict of interest form.
I sent it a few minutes ago.
Oh, perfect. I closed my email so I wouldn't be tempted to look at it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm behind the curve.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're right on schedule. You're good to go. I just want to thank everyone for taking time out this afternoon to meet with us and discuss the Youth Career Pathways opportunity. I look at this next hours are a little bit over that we're going to spend with each other. If you have any questions, please let me know. It's an open forum. I really want it to be relaxed. You all are the reviewers of the applications for us, and we really appreciate that. I want to go over very quickly, just if you have any audio issues, if you want to log out and log back in, or if you would like to use your cell phone. I am going to show my screen and show a lot of the website and just forms that we're going to use for this opportunity. But if for whatever reason technology is just not on our side today, just know that you can always call in, or you can put it in the chat, and either Kristen or Martha can give you further instruction as far as how to see my screen or anything like that. They will also let me know if for some reason my audio cuts out. So just bear with us. We are all at the mercy of the technology gods right now. So just a brief introduction of what we're going to do this afternoon. I'm going to introduce myself and the staff that we have for the Youth Career Pathways program. We're going to review very briefly the NOFO. I'm going to do an outline through PowerPoint. I'm going to show you where the applications will be housed, also the required documents for the grant opportunity. And then I'm going to show you the scorecards, budget information, and then we'll do any closing remarks. Let me just pull up the chat. Yes, Janelle, the slides will be shared with you as well. Just so everyone knows, this will be recorded and we will place it in the reviewer section on the website, so you will have access to everything you need. My only job is to make this an enjoyable experience for you. So if there's anything you need between now and the end of our time together, please let me know, because we would like to use you again next year if this works out very well. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And if you want to either put the information, if you have any questions in the chat, or if you just want to unmute yourselves, feel free. Like I said, I just want this to be really relaxed so we can give you guys the information you need. So our youth department is quite large. It is 2 of us so far. My name is Tara Scott. I'm the grant manager for the Youth Careers Pathways program. This is our 3rd year completing the program. And we also have our intern this year is Sarah Blaylock, and she's also going to help out with the Youth Career Pathways grants this time around. The first time that we did this grant opportunity, we had 13 grantees, and then the second year we had 7. And so we are looking between that, maybe 7 to 10 or something like that. I really felt like 7 was a really good number. We were able to stay with the organizations, build rapport, and really check in on the participants. So we're just looking at, you know, different ways to expand the program, but still make sure everyone gets what they need. So the main website that we're using is Illinois WorkNet. We put the website at the bottom. If you have any information, if you forget anything regarding this grant opportunity, everything is posted on this website. I'm actually going to show you when we finish. The website, the NOFOs posted there, all the required documents, and that's where you actually get access to the applications. If there's anyone on this call that has not emailed me and David your Illinois WorkNet email, please do so. And so we can give you access to that. It's a special little spot online where it says access to applications, reviewers only, and that's where everything will be housed for this opportunity. So if you haven't done so, just let me know. And let me pull you all down so I can actually see. Okay, no problem, Andrew. Just let me, if you just email your Illinois WorkNet email to me, I'll add David and we'll get you access to that.
I'll keep trying to get in. I'm in a bit of a loop with it, so I don't want to take up your time, but I'll work offline with somebody if I can't get in right now.
Okay, let me know. We'll get it going. And David can also, if there's any, like if it's locked or anything, he can fix it for us. So we want to make sure that these projects align with the state unified plan. We want to make sure that they are employer driven. Our ultimate goal for these grants is to get youth jobs and get them permanent employment that's meaningful. So when you're reading these grant applications, if you can really look at it as this is your money. So you have up to $500,000 of your money that you're going to use to fund different projects. And so when you're reading it, you want it to make sense to you. So if you're at all reading applications and you have questions of how, you know, are we paying $15,000 per student and then they're going to shred papers, you know, for $10 an hour, that's not a meaningful opportunity. That's not a meaningful job. And so we want it to make sense for our reviewers so that we can have the confidence behind the projects and know that it's a real permanent employment opportunity. Another thing is when we talk about work-based learning, I really stress to our grantees, I don't want students shredding papers. I don't want them cleaning offices, making copies. We want them doing, you know, if it's manufacturing, we want them doing manufacturing. If it's construction, we really want them out there in the construction field. So like I said, just think about that, making sure that it's the business, the individual, and the communities coming together and contributing to our overall state's economy is what we're trying to do with these grant opportunities. Another thing that we talked about in here is the goals of this. And so it really is highlighting, you know, our youth and also action areas that the governor has outlined in his executive order. He is a big proponent of our students working in, like we said, in meaningful positions. And permanent employment opportunities is what we really want to have. We want to have lasting employment for our youth. And just so everyone knows, this grant opportunity is 1 year. We have some grants that'll do 1.5 years, just depending on the sector that they choose, but we really like to keep them at 1 year. These grants are only seed money. So we get our money from the Department of Labor and they say, hey, this is seed money only. Let's get it, you know, get this program up and going. And so I stress to the grantees that we really want to make sure that you're using our money to do your program, and ultimately you want results so that you can go out and get permanent funding from other private donors, public funding, but there has to be somebody that gives you that initial seed money so that you can show that it is a great program for you. So we just want to highlight that as another one of our goals. When we think about career pathways, we're really thinking about a high quality education, training services. We're looking at this grant literally is about partnerships. You're going to hear me say that like 15,000 times because it's really about collaborative efforts. It's about, you know, someone doing recruitment. Maybe there's another agency that can step in and help your youth with work-based learning opportunities, or they can help, you know, provide steel-toe boots, or if you're working with homeless youth, you're having another agency that deals primarily with homeless youth, securing housing. So it's all about pulling from each other's strengths and bringing them in so that we can have a quality project. So that's what we want to see. You also want to see multiple entry and exit points for this program and training. We don't want to see a training program that says we're going to train youth for 52 weeks and they must come to class every day or they lose out on this opportunity. You're going to have some youth, despite best efforts, that say, hey, I'm only coming here to get a permanent job, and then I have to go either provide for my family, I have to go do other things. And so we really want to make sure that they leave with something. So whether that's an industry recognized credential and a work-based learning opportunity, when they leave their program, we want them to take something with them, especially a credential or anything like that. So when you're reading this program, just make sure it makes sense. We shouldn't have students in training, for a year, and then, you're trying to keep them and hold them. As you know, working with youth, despite best efforts, sometimes they are hard to track down. And so maybe the training program is 8, 16 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that, to where they have enough time to get through the program, but also have a work-based learning opportunity. So just like I said, it should make, when you're reading it, you should feel good about the program. You should really understand it. And you should see that, okay, they're working with you. And I really like the programs that have stackable credentials. So they may start off with industry recognized credential that's a level 1. If you're talking about construction, they use the NCCER. And then you may have another step that's, let's just call it the NCCER number 2. Everybody in the program got number 1, and then you may have a select group that says, hey, I would like to stay on for additional training. And so I would like to get the number 2 credential. So ultimately, like I said, multiple entry and exit points for our youth. It's very important. And then this is really highlighting the collaborative effort, work-based learning, training programs, education. We just want to make sure that everybody's doing their piece so that we can have a cohesive program. So there's some elements we want to highlight. We want to make sure that there is some alignment with the state or unified plan. We want to make sure that we're preparing the individual for a wide range. If they want to go off to post-secondary, once they complete the training, some of them may stay on in permanent employment with their work-based learning opportunity. So you just want to have different things that they can do once they get this credential. You also want to make sure that there's some type of counseling or support services. So there may be a youth that says, hey, I'm really interested in your program, but I don't have childcare. There's no one that can watch my child. So this is where your partners come in, to where you can tap someone in the childcare sector, or if they have transportation issues, you want to be able to see that they're providing that for their students. You also want to make sure that there is, when we talk about employment and clusters, that the training that they're getting is also the job. So we don't want to see youth getting trained in construction, manufacturing, health science, and then they're filling out applications to work at Walmart, Target, Amazon, because that would not be a good return on our investment. We want to see them in the same sector-based jobs. And just a moment of transparency, in our first round, we did have that issue where some students, they got the industry recognized credential, and then they were working at places that they really didn't need the training for. And so we want to make sure we're pushing our grantees to keep that consistency with the sectors. Also making sure that the education and the training programs, that they're able to help the individual, making sure that they're being met, making sure there's case management throughout. So you should really see a strong emphasis on supportive services while you're reading this. And another thing we talked about is the industry recognized credential. All projects must have an industry recognized credential. So that's something that you're looking for when you're reading it. If there's ever a time you're reading one of the applications and you're confused, we do not want you, you want to Google and make sure that it's tied to it for certain credentials, that's fine. If you want to shoot me an email and say, hey, Tara, just want to make sure they're saying this credential, is it okay? But they should be providing that information also in their grant application that shows, hey, we're doing this sector and this, credential is industry recognized. So all of the grant opportunities must serve youth with barriers. So you want to make sure that they're showing that part, and they also want to integrate the workforce and also supportive services. A big thing that we wanted to check for this time is the sustainability of the project. We want to make sure that it makes sense that someone would fund it in the future. So like I stated, our projects that we have right now are seed money only. And so we want to make sure that we're able to sustain it. So if you're looking at a project and they're saying, you know, it's going to cost $20,000 per student for us to keep this project up, that's not realistic. That's a very expensive program. We typically see and fund projects that have a cost per participant between $5,000 to $10,000. I would say if you're looking at more of your IT programs, that's more on the heavier side, about 10. If you're looking at your manufacturing, your construction, we've seen projects about 5,000 to 7,000, just depending on, like I said, what credentials they obtain and then how many. So that's just something to look at. If there's ever a question you have, you know, just make a note and let me know. You don't have to look at the budgets and understand them. We have a whole finance department that does that piece, but we want to make sure that it makes sense and that it's fundable. That's the biggest thing. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. We can hop in. I'm moving the chat box. I'm going to close the chat box just so I can see the full screen. So if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself and then we can.
So my question is, out of the grant applications, how many do you anticipate will get funded?
So the last time around we had 20 applications and we funded 7. Okay. The first time around we had about 25 applications and we funded 13. Gotcha. We're looking to spend about $4 million on this project. And if there's any that you read and you're super passionate about it and you know, there's some tweaks that a grantee can make in their application, please let us know. Note it in your comments on the scoring cards, because we really want to make sure that we're funding projects and that we don't, you know, read one piece of it that we're like, they could fix that one thing and then this will be a really good project. So please let me know if there's any that you read that you're like, hey, this really sounds good. And I'm really excited. I want to see something that's innovative. We haven't seen anything in the agriculture space I'm really excited about. Energy, I haven't seen any projects. Business, whether that's entrepreneurship or anything like that, we haven't seen. We normally fund construction, manufacturing, health science. I would say those are the 3 big ones. So if there's any, like I said, that are energy, agriculture, I am so excited for us to get some more and innovative ideas and projects. Heather, did you have a question as well?
Hi, yeah, Tara. Was just, I assume too, I think I saw the notice about a scorecard, so I'm probably going to ask a question that's going to be answered in a moment, but like all the different components on the last piece, I assume those are like spelled out as we're kind of like going like a checklist almost. Okay. Yes.
I'll show you when we get to the scorecard. Yep.
Okay. I saw a scorecard and I was like, I'm doing that thing where I ask the question before it's, yeah.
That's okay. Anyone else have any questions thus far? All right. Another thing that we've added this year, and that's really been a point that we want to elevate, is equity. So we want to make sure that we are funding projects in underrepresented communities, underrepresented racial groups. Like I said, agriculture, I mean, when I look at Illinois, I just think of agriculture. And so I would think that we want to fund something also that's not Chicago heavy. We want to fund stuff that's in central and southern Illinois. So anytime I see any of those projects, I really get excited because it's just an opportunity for us to make sure that we have equity throughout our state. So we want to highlight that here.
Sarah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask, like, are you looking to fund statewide? I mean, I understand that you state, but just to be clear for this RFP, it is literally open to the entire state.
The entire state. And oftentimes we get so many applications from Chicago. So like I said, when we see anything from the southern state, part of the state, we get really excited about it. So I hopefully this time we get some more. When we talk about target populations, we're looking at individuals with disabilities, returning citizens, parents, single parents, people that have been, our students that have been underemployed. We're looking at youth that have aged out of foster care is really, really, really big. There is a a study that we were looking at, and we actually had a program, I want to say a couple of years ago, where students had aged out of foster care. You know, sometimes you get your independence and you're like, okay, I'm done. You're not in my business anymore. I don't have to meet with you monthly. I'm out of here, I'm free. And then we've noticed that after a couple of years, they actually wanted to come back to care or wanted that support. And so I'm really interested if there's a project out there about foster youth and just how we can bridge that gap before they're, you know, too old to come back into care. So that's another thing that I just wanted to highlight. Also English language learners. We wanted to highlight even migrant workers, farm workers. So this is just target populations. We're just using this to jog your memory. So if you read anything, we should definitely highlight those programs. There are a lot of youth that are juvenile in the justice system. And so if there's any projects like that that you see, please note that for us so we can look at those as well. Disproportionately impacted areas, like I said, you don't have to do any research. The project should definitely show you in there, hey, we are in a poverty rate of 20% or higher. You know, our households are on any SNAP assistance. They should tell you that information, but we would like to, like I said, highlight those populations as well. So the proposed models, they must have a training provider, a work-based learning opportunity, some type of case management, whether that's in-house or they're contracting with someone else. And when you're looking at what we call an MOU, it's a memorandum of understanding, you wanna make sure that if Tara's group is supposed to recruit youth, she's gonna case management, that's spelled out. As we all have dealt with different agencies, and so we wanna make sure that that MOU is very pristine. Everybody knows their roles, their responsibilities, and what they're gonna be held accountable for. So as you're reviewing that, just make sure you're looking for that consistency in there. We also wanna make sure we're including essential employability skills, being on time, looking professional, finance literacy, digital literacy. Those are things we wanna make sure that the programs are highlighting and that you really see that for the students. And then we wanna look at any career pathways. The career pathways definition, we have it linked and I'll show you that as well, but just making sure that you truly see a pathway. So you're coming into our program, we're recruiting you, we're giving you some type of training, and then we're giving you an industry recognized credential that's based off of the training you've received. You're also gonna get a work-based learning opportunity, whether that's a couple weeks or whether that's a couple months long, it just depends on the program. And then lastly, I always say, then what? What are you doing with the youth? So either they're going off to post-secondary education, they're staying at their work-based learning opportunity and staying on as permanent employment, or you have other employers on the project that's in the same sector. So we just you should be able to see kind of like a story through their application and know, okay, my youth go from here, they're there, they're there. And that everybody, I look at it as like a safety net. I'm passing you off to the next person and knowing that you're getting these different services. So we just wanted to highlight here, we have some preferred models that we really want to highlight. Equity, like we talked about with the disproportionately impacted areas. If you see any that are youth with disabilities, I really want to fund some of those projects. We've had a DEI program in the past that was really, really good. And so if you see any, please make sure that you're letting us know that it's working with youth with disabilities. We also wanted to talk about 10 program components. So you're looking for partnerships, you're looking for a business, and it looks like the business is actually engaged and they're a true partner on the project. You want to make sure that the industry is in demand. If I'm in Southern Illinois, you want to make sure that I'm not looking at occupations that are in Chicago or the other regions. So you want to make sure that what's in that region is really a high demand, high skill occupation that they have noted there. And like I said, you should get all this information from their application. So if it's not noted, or if you have any questions of, okay, you're having all these farmers, where are you going to put them? Then those are questions you want to note on your scoring card that, it looks like it's a lack either of partnerships, employee partners, or something like that. You also want to make sure, like we talked about, that there is a credential that they're obtaining that is very, very important to have an industry recognized credential. Work-based learning is 20%. So 20% of their overall project must be in work-based learning. And that is to pay youth for working. Some projects may say that they want to have it as an unpaid internship, which we have, but I advocate all the time for youth to get paid. It's just working with students, especially with high school students or students that are out of school, they could use the money for something. So and this grant opportunity really offers us an opportunity to pay them. So if we could do that, that would be great. You want to look at workplace skills. You want to make sure that they have some type of individual career plans. You want to know that there's some type of case management going on. The individual supports we talked about, I love when a project, we had one funded a couple of years ago. I literally felt like if your student went to this program, they were going to have, and they were working in the medical field, they had 2 scrub uniforms, they had shoes, they had the stockings, they had the hair, maybe a bandana or something that you use to tie back your hair. I felt like the youth were ready to work. There was nothing that they needed to purchase on their own. And that's really ultimately what these projects should be. You want to have it to where they are providing so much support for these students that all the youth have to do is show up, show their best self, and work. Not worry about, do I have the right shoes? Do I have a tool belt? How did I get here? Transportation. So you want to make sure that you really see an effort from the agency to provide that support. And like we talked about, it doesn't necessarily all have to come from the agency. This is where you have other partners on the project. So it's a big project, but ultimately we're focused on the individual getting all the supports that they need. And then performance measures, I'll show you performance. As you know, we got to tie it back to performance and make sure we keep a track of that. But this is really good for agencies. Like we talked about, this is seed money. And so they want to be able to show future funders, this is how many folks we enrolled, this is how many people completed our program, and how many obtained their industry recognized credentials. So we want to make sure we're keeping a track of that. And the main thing that we're highlighting this year is sustainability. So we want to make sure that these projects are going to be around for a very long time, and not just, that one cool project we funded for 1 year and then it's gone. So really, when you're looking at this, make sure that it is a sustainable project. It's really key. Just highlighting the different partnerships. So they could have a business, the workforce, and the community college come in. You could have the workforce system. We deal with in-school and out-of-school youth for some projects. They can't pick both, so they have to choose one. So for the one for in-school youth, they may be working with K-12 education, community college, a business, industry recognized associations. So it's just different ways you can configure partnerships, but it is open. So this is the biggest thing about our partnerships that we see. And then talking about the MOUs, making sure that all projects must have at least one business attached to it. If it does not have a business attached to it, we can't fund it because it leaves our youth hanging. We gave them a great opportunity, we gave them training, and then we have nowhere to put them. So when you're looking at these applications, please make sure that you see at least one business partner. I would love to see more, the more the merrier, but at least one business partner. And then when we talk about a formally established LWIA relationship, this year we actually added a letter of consistency from the LWIAs, and that came about because we funded projects before and the local area knew nothing about it. And so we found the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to have a letter of consistency. And I'll actually show you an example online. It basically says that they know about the project, that the project is in alignment with either their current policies, procedures, visions, goals of the area. So we just had to find a way for everyone to know that this is happening. And we've figured out the best way to do that is a letter of consistency. So the letter of consistency that you'll see in the application can be short and sweet. That says, we met with them, we understand the project. This is something that we could potentially fund once, DCEO's funding is over, or we are in an agreement with the project and we will help them figure out other private funding, something to show that the LWIA at least knows that this project is happening. Also having a business engagement plan, making sure that they're able to increase and get more business partners. Right now, this is really tricky because if we have a project that has, let's say 20 students and we have one business, that's too much pressure on a business. To give 20 work-based learning opportunities, that's a lot. And so if we can encourage grantees to have multiple business partners, then we can kind of scatter the students out a little bit and maybe have staggered times or different days that they come in for a work-based learning opportunity. And then we're using Illinois WorkNet as our project management system this time around. And they're gonna have multiple technical assistance sessions throughout the project. We normally meet every Wednesday at 11 a.m. So we just wanted to highlight that there. And then this is just to show the MOU. So when you're looking at the MOUs, if you know nothing about them, you can look at this document and say, okay, who's doing your recruitment? Who's doing your eligibility determination? How much does this partnership cost? Because some partners may say, hey, I'm willing to, you know, provide these services, but here's the cost for that. So making sure that's highlighted. Who's doing the enrollment, case management, looking at the performance measures, reporting, and then follow up. On these projects, yes, they're a year long for the actual training part, getting the work-based learning, but required by DOL, we also have a year of follow-up. So I like to look at these projects as it's a 2-year grant. You have 1 year to get everything you need out of the project, and then you have another year for the grantees to follow up with the youth and making sure that they have everything they need in that year. This is just a map of the local workforce areas. And we just wanted to highlight, so if someone tells you that they're in the central part, you know, West Central, or if they're in the southern region, we just wanted to have a visual map of that.
Tara, I have a question.
Yes.
Hi, this is Lisa. I think the slide before you had mentioned you mentioned 2 years. You said a 2-year grant.
Yes.
And then earlier, and unless I got it wrong, in the beginning you said it's a 1-year grant for seed money only.
Mm-hmm. So it's a 1-year grant for training, work-based learning, everything you need for the youth to be successful, but they have a year of follow-up that's mandated by DOL. So in my eyes, I look at it as a 2-year grant. So when you're looking at these applications, you want to make sure that they have the capacity, because some grantees are like, hey, I can only provide services for a year. And also, if you look at a project and they're saying they want to hire 5 people for a 1-year grant, that's not sustainable. There's no way, because once our money is gone, you're going to lay off 4 of the 5 possible people. So the year of follow-up is something we stress to grantees as well, so that they understand you don't just have the students, give them a job and then leave them. You actually have to hold on to them for a year and provide case management services, 2-way conversations, and talking to the youth and making sure that they are, you know, doing okay. Do they need anything? It's not just to give you training and I'll see you later. So
the question I have, and that was a good question about 2 years or 1 year. So the second year is actually not funded by DCEO. That's where they have to have other money to continue the program.
Yes, and it's really, they won't need, let me not speak for agencies. The only thing they should be doing in the year of follow-up is 2-way communication. Just talking to the youth, texting the youth, Facebooking the youth, making sure that, hey, we had, because the first year that they have funding, you're getting so much support. The youth is getting everything, transportation vouchers and all of that. The second year is really you checking in and saying, now that you have a job, we got you permanent employment. Are you doing okay? How's the job? So it's really just case management that second year. But we just like grantees to know that it's not just 1 year and you're done and you wipe your hands clean and you walk away. And that's, like I said, mandated by DOL that we have that year of follow-up for any youth grant.
So do they get the grant in the first fiscal year? Do they get quarterly? How do they get paid this grant?
So they submit for their funding quarterly.
Quarterly.
And we have quarterly. Mm-hmm. So when I talk to grantees, I'm very upfront about do as much as you can in that first year for your students, because the second year you should just be checking in monthly. Hey, you doing okay? Everything all right? And they're documenting in our system, you know, hey, I talked to John today, he's doing well on the job. Or I spoke to John and we really had to talk about conflict resolution at work. You know, he's having some issues with a coworker. So that second year is really just a check-in. And I actually like that DOL put that stipulation in there, because at first we had so many grants where it was just 1 year and then a lot of organizations were just done. They didn't know where the youth went. They didn't, you know, if you said, hey, you worked with, you know, Andrew last year, how's he doing? And they're like, I don't know, he's you know, he's off our books. So I think hopefully this will keep, you know, first build the report, but this will also keep them kind of tied together for an additional year.
But all the money gets sent to the provider the first fiscal year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Tara, so it's not reimbursement? It's an
No, it's reimbursement. They're getting reimbursed.
So then they're submitting vouchers to the state and then they're being reimbursed.
We have
just like us at the city.
Yep. But so what I do is every month I actually send them like my screenshot of my, the system
expenditure report?
Yeah, I send them, it's like a ledger. And I'm like, you spent $10,000 this month. And then the next month, if they spend like 50, I'm like, woo, 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 everything okay? You spent 50. So every month I'm showing them exactly what they're spending. One, you want to make sure that they're spending enough, you know, to keep up. And then also you want to make sure that it's sustainable, because if you have it to where you're spending $20,000 per student, that's not sustainable for any, I mean, you know, unless it's a huge agency that gets private funding, that's really hard to do. So it's also a reality check of them looking and saying, hey, look how much this program is costing you, you know. But I always like to throw out there that it is a one-year grant on paper, but in actuality, for me, in my mind, it's a 2-year grant, because you have to keep a track of those students. And I always tell them, if you have to, when you're putting youth in and you're recruiting them, if you're having a hard time getting birth certificates, social security cards, the application side, don't put someone like that in your program, because you're going to be chasing them for 2 years. And that's, you know, that's really difficult to do. We don't want to just see numbers in the system to say you've hit all your numbers. We want to know that you're actually able to keep a track of these students for 2 years.
So should we also be looking for, in regards to the second year, a person or an employee that will be able to track this, or just them saying it is okay?
So that's when case management is really critical. So you want to make sure that they're addressing case management in their application.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But when you're reading the grants, they're going to write, most grantees write it up as a year grant, but we have stressed on our technical assistance, it's still a year follow-up for these grants, for this grant opportunity. So that's why if you look at, it always jumps out, because 9 times out of 10, some agency doesn't. We're going to hire 3 case managers. We're going to hire 4 new staff. And my first question is, that's wonderful and amazing. This is a year grant. Are you going to be able to sustain those other 3 people? And then they're like, you know what? We're going to hire 1 or 2 case managers, because I want them to look at this year is going to fly by. And so you want to make sure that I'm already working on sustainability the first day that they're our grantees, because the first year is done by the time we look at it.
Is the information provided the providers stated so that the providers know that a second year is included or should be included? That's pretty made clear in the information they received.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have said it, we put it in writing, but we've also said it on every call. And actually when they, when we're looking at the applications and kind of going back and forth, you know, discussing money and how many participants, if I see an application and they say, I'm going to recruit 100 youth, and I'm going to do that for $200,000, I'm automatically, my ears are up. I'm going to cut you down to 50 youth, because you don't want to put that much pressure on yourself as a provider. This is a project where you're learning, and it is okay if a grantee comes to us and say, hey, I have 20 youth, and if we're doing well in the first quarter and we're doing all right, can we add youth? That's a great problem to have. But I don't want a provider to have 100 youth and they have so much pressure on themselves of like, we got to get them in because we told them, you know, the state that we would do 100. So we really want to look at a whole lot of things when you're looking at these applications. Does it sound feasible that they're able to do 100 youth for $200,000? I doubt it. You know, that's a really cheap program. I mean, that's pretty much nothing. So you want to, it just has to make sense for you reading. And I love that we have people from outside that don't read the grants all the time, grade them and review them, because there's stuff that I miss, because I'm so used to, hey, make it nice and light on yourselves. Don't put so much pressure. We can always add more youth. I can add more money. Don't tell the grantees that, but we can add more money if the project is going well. But having it to where you have so much pressure on yourselves, your money, it's tight. You know, I always tell grantees, don't do that. So if you're reading it and it sounds like it can be sustainable, that would be great. But always look at these as they're 1-year grants on paper, but I always remind them it's a year follow-up.
Okay.
So this is the WIOA map. One of the things we talk about is the 14 youth elements. And this is where partnerships come in. So one agency possibly could provide these services, but it's always good to have a partner. If it's a smaller agency, you know, maybe they're having someone come in to do financial literacy. So you want to make sure that these programs are also providing either tutorials, any recovery classes if they're dealing with in-school youth, occupational skills training, paid work experience. You want to make sure that they're at least having either they're providing these services or they have someone on their team that's providing them. And like I said, that should be outlined really in the MOU, and it could be addressed throughout the narrative of the project.
Tara, this is Norman. I have a question related to supportive services. Are you thinking that they should also provide stipends to students, or is that not part of this?
So here's the thing, stipends are legally, they can legally do that. We shy away from stipends. And the reason why is because we have the work-based learning opportunity with 20% of their grant has to be used for that. So if they're doing stipends and work-based learning, they're eating up, they could easily eat up 50% of their budget. Also with stipends, we found in the past, we had one grantee that was, you come to class, you get $100. You take a drug test, you get $50. And when you're doing that with students and your relationship is always transactional, when that relationship is done or when they are self-sustainable, it makes it hard because then they're like, hey, I went to work 5 days a week. I need something for that. Or I'm only coming to your program because you're providing money and I'm not really coming to your program because I'm getting something out of it. So we do shy away from stipends for the youth projects. And anything also that's like food related, we stay away from. It just gets really hairy with the budget part and submitting receipts. So we don't provide any food or anything like that. But that's why it's always good to have other partners because you maybe want to give them a refreshment and you know, you can bring in a private funder for that part. But we've just found with the stipends, it became so transactional. And then when you ran out of money, then now you're chasing youth down the street because you don't have it, you don't have anything else to give them.
Yeah, no, I was just, because, you know, I mean, from experience, we used to do performance-based stipends based on attendance and academic performance, and that tends to work well, but you're right. Unfortunately, stipends eat up your budget very quickly. I mean, you could literally be paying 50% of your grant just in stipends, right? It's crazy. Yeah, so.
And because the federal government has mandated that 20% in work-based learning, that takes out a huge chunk. Of it. So if you add a stipend on there, I could easily see it going 50, 60%. And then you're trying to cover the program itself. It could be quite expensive.
Now, can you clarify what you mean by work-based learning? Because, you know, there's a variety of things that can be done in that area, but what is it in particular that you're looking for here and how the programs pay for that so that when we're reading these proposals, we have an idea.
So work-based learning can be different. So, and this is what we really want you to look at. If you're reading a construction grant, you want to first make sure that the work-based learning is construction-based. And so whether that is on-site, you know, whether they're being a helper, whether they are actually at a construction site helping build a home, you know, anything like that, you want to look there. Also, if there is an apprenticeship, so they go into an apprenticeship, we look at that as different ways or pre-apprenticeship. And I have a sheet that I can give you, and I'm going to make a note for myself that talks about the different work-based learning opportunities that we see. But the main thing when you're reading these applications, just make sure that you're seeing the work-based learning opportunity is also the same as the training that they're getting. That's very critical. So we don't want them getting trained in something and then doing a work-based learning and it's completely different. Anybody else have any questions? And just also note on the work-based learning, it could be 4 weeks, it could be 4 months. It just depends on the program. So when you're reading it, there's no set time limit, but I'd like to see youth in a good work-based learning at least 3 weeks or so, because I think of a week, you're just kind of figuring it out. The second week, you're actually doing the job, the hands-on things, or maybe the next 2 weeks. So I do like to see at least 3 weeks for them to be on the job working or doing something. I think a week or 2 weeks is just too short, but like I said, it also depends on the program. Talking about work-based learning. So it's, I mean, like I said, we're gonna say this 50 million times, but 20% of the budget must be in there. And it can be in the form of paid and unpaid. Like I said, I always advocate for paid internships if we can, because we have that 20% in there. It also, under work-based learning, pre-apprenticeship, registered apprenticeship, on-the-job training is really, really good. And that's when you have an employer that says, hey, I wanna hire Tara immediately. And so they're bringing you, underneath their wing. The thing, and let me just kind of give you behind the scenes. So 20% of work-based learning, technically you can put in case management under there if you have your staff going out to the work sites, but we really like to see youth getting paid. So that would be like, if it's an unpaid work experience, then the way they would do that 20% would be staff costs, going out there, making sure the students have their drug tests, making sure they have their backgrounds, so that they could do that. But like I said, I advocate heavily, and we've talked on the webinars. I really like to see youth get paid, especially during this time when families have so much going on. COVID-19 considerations. So as we all know, we've lived through, hopefully, a very challenging year. And so we want to make sure that they have some type of contingency plan. So when you're looking at that, making sure that they have some way, if God forbid things go back and we're on any lockdowns, we don't want youth to just say, oh, your work-based learning opportunity is done because we can't send you to a factory today. We want to make sure that there's some type of plan in place that says, although you won't be working on the machinery, in person, you can log into the computer, you can do this for your job. There's other things that they can do. And this is where having the employer is very critical, because they will be able to tell you, these are the things you can do from home that would still count as, working. And then these are the things you can't. Now, places like, or sectors like construction and manufacturing, it's very tight, because those jobs in person, very tactical. So this is really good and important for employers to let us know, and really let the agencies know what you can actually do during online platforms or through online platforms, if we have an issue of outbreaks or anything.
Did last year's grant applications include a contingency plan, or were they? No, okay.
But guess what? They ended March 30th. So I was just thanking everyone, because, that would have put us in a really, really tight position. And we were able to transition from home without any issues, but that's not really, throughout all sectors. Like I said, when I think of this plan, I was thinking of construction and manufacturing, really, and healthcare too, where you really have to be in person to get those jobs completed. So we added this in here this year, just as a way for youth to still get paid and get their work-based learning opportunities, even if it's remotely. We wanted to make sure. So performance. They should highlight in their application, these are the things that our performance office looks at. They look at employment or education rates after the second quarter and the fourth quarter. They look at the income that they've made or earnings. They look at the credential attainment throughout the grant, and then measurable skill gains. So when they talk about measurable skill gains, that is if you have taken the TABE test and you scored a 7 the first time, and then you come in and take it later on in the program and you scored a 9, that would be a measurable skill gain. If you have any transcripts that show you're taking college courses or anything like that, that would be a measurable skill gain. But we have a full performance person that comes in and does this. You're just looking at this to make sure, again, it sounds right. If you're looking at a project and they say, we're gonna have 50 youth in the program, all 50 are gonna get credentials, all 50 are gonna get measurable skill gains, your alarm should be going off and saying, it has to be a realistic program. That would be great if all the youth got the credential, but that's not really the reality we live in. You may have, despite best efforts, some youth that just don't pass the, whatever the testing is. So this is where you have multiple entry and exit points, and where you're looking for them to at least get something from the program. So I love, again, when programs have stackable credentials, because it gives all the youth an opportunity to at least get something from them. Another thing that is prompting me to think about is credentials, CPR is not an industry recognized credential by DOL. Also OSHA 10, OSHA 30 is not an industry recognized credential. So in construction, you may, in order to go on a construction site, you may need OSHA 10, OSHA 30. And those are basically just safety, guidelines or safety things. And those can be noted in the application that students will, get CPR, they will get the OSHA 10, but those aren't industry recognized credentials. So if you have any issues about credentials, just shoot me an email or a note on your scoring sheet, and we can verify those credentials. But we just wanted to make note that those are not industry recognized credentials anymore.
Hi, Tara. A question here about the performance indicators. Do you have targets for these indicators, or just as long as they have some numbers, it's fine, reasonable numbers, but there are no specific targets you're looking for?
Very good question. So I'm going to show you on the, I think it's coming up, but we have the WIOA. They cannot go lower than their local workforce area. And so we've provided so maybe a credential attainment, the local area is at 65%. For their grant, they can't go any lower than 65% on there. And I'll show you that on the website. But they've been given those. So, and that's really for us to do. If you want to look at it and make sure it lines up, that's great. We would love that additional help. But we're making sure that they stay at least with the local workforce area. And that was another thing when we were doing the letter of consistency from the local areas, is for them to talk about performance measures. When we first did our grants, we had grantees that were way lower than the local areas, and the areas were like, wait, we can't be held to 60% and you're letting grantees come in at 14%. That's not gonna work. And so we're trying to find a way for everybody to be graded on with the same youth. And so we have added that performance measure that it cannot be lower than the local area.
Can't be lower than what is it again?
The local workforce area. So we have a chart that shows, and I'll show it to you, that has their numbers for credential attainment. It may show LWIA 7, which is Chicago region, is at 65%. So if your grant is in Chicago, then you can't go below 65% for that given indicator. Sustainability. We talked about this a little bit, but just the main point about it is we want to make sure that it makes sense for this project to be funded after the year of programming, and that it's feasible. And so when you're looking at the sustainability plans, make sure that they have some partners on there. Some agencies may say, we're going to apply for funding through JP Morgan and Chase through their community block grant. So you just want to make sure that they have some type of plan in place to where there's places for them to get some type of funding for the project. And this is just a thing we highlighted, like I said, this year, because we want to make sure that we're not just funding projects and then they're gone the next year. So we're really pushing sustainability this year.
Have you received grant applications in the past and they were not approved and the provider submitted a grant application the following year? I mean, could we expect to see grant applications for providers that submitted previous years then didn't get funded?
Yes, and that's a really good question. You can, and the good part about that is we've had a reviewer that either reviewed their application and it just didn't make it some kind of way, and they were given that feedback of you need to strengthen this, this, and this. And so hopefully now that we're able to read it this time around, that they've addressed some of those initial concerns.
Okay.
There is also an agency that is a past recipient. I will let you know that in there. And I will also give you any insight of, we've had them before. These are the things that we want to look out for. Hey, let's make sure, let's watch their participant numbers. So I will definitely provide you with that information.
Okay.
But we do have some grantees. I can think of 3 that have that received it the first round and the second round. Wow. And they just emailed me today and said, hey, I'm finishing up. I just have a quick question about this. So they're coming in this time around for the 3rd time.
Gotcha.
So we have some grantees that just say, okay, I'm coming back in. And that's what prompted us this year to really talk about sustainability. Because when they're coming back in, they do have to come back in with a totally different project. Because it's a seed money, you can't do manufacturing one year and manufacturing second year. We can't do that with the DOL funds. So if they did manufacturing 1 year and then they switched to healthcare the second year, and then this is the third year they want to come in for construction, they can do that because these are different projects.
Got it. That was going to be my question.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, it's seed money versus making an investment, like of a 3-year investment. Then it's like, why are you going to RFP every year? But now,
yep. And I have mixed feelings about it because if it's a really good project, I would love to just be able to fund it and keep it on. But again, I'm
well, and it's great from a grants management perspective, right? Like it depends on what the expectations are. Like, are we making an investment as a state, right? Like I think about the city, we make investments long-term. There was a time period we did the RFPs, which was crazy because we were still funding the same folks and the model didn't change. Now you understand, like you're looking at different industries and different types of trainings, and that makes sense. But then it's like, but if there is something to your point, like let's say like energy right now is huge in agriculture and folks are starting to kind of tap into that. Like if there's a way, I mean, I don't know if this may be more work on DCEO's end, but when you think about like, here's kind of like a longer term strategy of wanting to invest for the next 3 years, then it's easier from grants management. Like, okay, you have this 3-year program and we want to see it grow. And then obviously transition to longer term funding or looking at other funding sources. But
that's the one stipulation that I'm kind of like, if it's a good program, I wish we could just keep going. But I look at it from the federal government's perspective of this is seed money. So I'm always like telling grantees, this is seed money. Use our money to say that your program is really great and really amazing. And then you go out and market it to other people and say, look what I did with $200,000 or $300,000, whatever the case may be. So use our money as a way to shop for more money, if that makes sense. So, and especially with the performance measures.
But Tara, are you able, if let's say it's a good program and they can do, let's say, another 2 cohorts, are you able to extend their contract for another year and just add money to theirs?
That we have not extended based off those circumstances, but we have extended and given more money. Like I said, say you put in 20 people in your program and within the first quarter, you have all 20 people in your program and you say, hey, DCEO, we want to add another 10. That's for me to write up about, how great and wonderful your program is and how you've already met your enrollment numbers. And then I can send that up to management to say, let's give more money to this program. I don't know if that would necessarily change your grant end date, but it could. So that's why we give 12, we could do a year to a year and a half is really pushing it. And also just so we know this money dies. So we get money from the federal government, they give it to us. I believe this money is by 3 years old. So we're also on a time limit of got to use this money up before it dies on the federal government side. But we are able to extend, get more participants in a program and possibly give more funds if it's a really good program and they're doing the work. So we have some grantees that come in, they get all their people in the first quarter and they're like, all right, give me more. I like that. I like those kind of problems. We just wanted to highlight allowable cost here. Like I said, just making sure it's necessary, reasonable, and that it makes sense for you. This is your money that you're personally giving out, and you want to make sure that it makes sense. For administrative costs, there is a cap on there that it should not exceed above 10%. Again, for the budget stuff, that's not for you all to worry about. If you want to look at it, that's more than helpful, and that would really help us out. But I don't need you with a calculator like, wait a minute, I think they're at 9.5%. Nope. I want it easy. This should be a very easy process for you all and enjoyable. And then I let the finance people do the finance stuff. I'm like, nope, that's in another bucket. That's another department. Let them do it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
But if you look at it and they're asking for like 50% in admin costs, I mean, that's just something, please note on the scoring card. Like they want us to pay rent and for copiers. And another thing this is making me think about is laptops and equipment kind of things. So if there's a program and they say, hey, we want to buy all our youth laptops and there's not a true need for it, hopefully something like that you will flag and say, we don't need, I mean, this is, federal money, but we are not out here just giving out stuff just because we have it. We really could use those funds for something else. So just things like that I've seen before. Laptops, they wanted to buy, cell phones, they wanted to buy for every student. And that's great, but again, it comes to a sustainability. If you buy youth a cell phone and you don't give them a plan to put minutes on the phone, how are they gonna have it? How are they gonna use it? And we're not paying cell phone bills every month. I mean, so it's just stuff like that that I really hope will jog your memory, and you know, the alarms will go off and you'll say, uh-oh, you know, this doesn't look right or anything like that. The award amount, like I said, we're looking to fund about $3 to $4 million in grants. The maximum that they can request is $500,000. And then the grant period is about 12 to 18 months. We really like to keep it at 12 because we want to have it to where we're aligning with the school year. It's something new we've also done. So just to take a step back, before we would start our grants in October, and then they would end right before the school year was out. And it would also actually be in the middle of another school year. And our schools that we were working with were like, you can't do this to me. We're missing performance numbers. So now this year is our first year trying it. We're actually going to align with the school year. So we're gonna start in August. I really wanna, on the grant agreements, it's actually gonna say a start date of June, but I want them to have a month to assign staff and get all the stuff that they need before the students actually get there. So I want them to use June and July to kind of get together. But we really want to start these grants in August, so where we have them for a full year and that they can get the numbers that they need out of the students. Did you have a question, Evelyn?
Well, I was going to say something, but I think you kind of clarified it, because again, just trying to put the lens that this is a statewide grant, and thinking about like the suburban schools, right? Like they normally end May-ish, and then they start as early as like the first week of August.
Yes.
So we want to give folks that prep time, and I'm like, that makes sense. Like, I'm just trying to map it out in my head, like what it looks like as folks are describing, you know, onboarding, training, you know, preparation. If they're doing like, you know, freshman connection, or even like senior connection, and whatever pathway they're identifying, then kind of outline.
And if they need to hire anybody, if they need to, you know, although they tell us on paper, hey, I'm working with Evelyn's group, I want them to also go back to Evelyn's group and say, hey, now we're funded. Remember, you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z. Can you still do that? Because they're submitting in April, but we're not starting until, you know, June or July. Things could change. So I want them to have that time to go back to their partners. And if there's anything that we need to fix before we get students in, I want us to at least have 2 months to kind of get that done. And not to where we're like, we start in August and the kids are coming in, run, you know, start the program now and run. So we're trying, like I said, and I love that our leadership is allowing us to be so flexible, because these are things we're learning. We learned the first 2 times around that us not aligning with the school year just didn't work with our providers. So this time around, we're going to try it with the school year and see if that's a lot better for our grantees. And the application requirements, so they have an executive summary. When you read the executive summary, this is big picture. You should read the executive summary and be able to see the program. And then the technical proposal is what they're going to do on a daily basis, how they get there. They're going to tell you about the cost of the program, staffing. They'll also tell you about the sector, why they chose the sector, where they're located and what makes sense. What's an in-demand job, you know, in Southern Illinois or Central Illinois. The scope of work is also, I'll show you a document that we have in the NOFO, but you know, just about the project and how much they're getting paid for work-based learning opportunities. We looked at the performance measures already, and then any additional attachments that they have, like I said, the letter of commitment from their partners, letter of commitment from the local workforce agencies, any tax forms, anything like that. You don't have to look at that stuff. You can leave it for us. If you want to, that's perfectly fine, but they just submit that with it. Like when they talk about NICRA, that's that's their federal rate. So you don't have to look at all that stuff, but they'll attach it with it. Looking at the contingency plan with COVID-19, and then any other attachments that they want to have that strengthens their application is what they'll attach as well. If there's ever anything you look at, like the first time I saw NICRA, I did not know what that was. If there's anything, give me a call, a text, an email, anything, let me know. The most information, you should get all your information really from the executive summary and the program proposal is where you should go. Again, this is your time and we appreciate it. So if you only have time to look at their proposal and their executive summary and you're like, look, DCEO, you handle the budget and the performance measure stuff, I'm more than grateful for that. So just let us know. Successful projects, partnerships, business engagement. If there's ever a time when you're like, oh, you know, I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking at everything, this is really good. This just goes through exactly what they should have. Sustainability projects, credentials, business engagement. So this is just to jog your memory of what you should be looking for throughout the projects.
Sarah, I just want to put my bid in for, you can take the budget and
I'm just glad that you're helping us read them. That takes, as you all know, so much time. So if there's anything, just say, hey, you look at the budget and I got it, it's fine. The scoring card. So I'm going to actually show you an Excel spreadsheet, but I just wanted to briefly review it. 60% of their overall score should come from the project quality. You read it, you understand it, you feel good about it. What's the need? Did they address measurements in there? Did they talk about their partners? Did they talk about the credentials, participant numbers? That's 60% of their score. 25% comes from the budget. You're looking at supportive services. We talked about cost per participant, making sure that sounds right. Looking at the outcomes of the project. You also want to look at them leveraging funds. If they say, you know, we have a provider that's willing to do X, Y, and Z, that's really good feedback. If there's matching funds, that's even better. We've actually had a couple projects that have leveraged funds and matched funds, which has been really, really helpful, because then it covers those things like stipends if they want to do it, like lunches if they want to do it, and then, you know, we keep the federal stuff to the side. So I really like that as well when they match funds. When they match funds. I am moving you all down. And then the last 15% is the capacity. Looking at the organization, looking at who their partners are. If it is a grant that deals with homeless youth, we should definitely see a homeless youth provider on there. We should see housing providers, you know, clothing providers or something like that. So just making sure it makes sense. That's the biggest thing. I mean, when you read these applications, you'll be able to say, okay, I can see this form, and you'll be able to, you know, draw pictures in your mind of how this looks for a participant is the biggest thing.
Have you had situations where somebody may have scored a grant application very high and someone else didn't score it high? Is there someone who looks at that and makes the decision or call?
Yes.
Third reader.
Yes, that makes my job really, really hard, but it's okay. But what we also do is we bring we're going to split you out into different groups. So let's just say the red group. And John, if you scored them 100 and Evelyn said they're 15, we're going to bring in the red group and we're going to say, okay, for this grantee, you know, you scored them 100, and we'll look at your comments. But it's also an opportunity for you to say, the reason why I scored them 100 is because they provided this, 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 and this. And then maybe Evelyn will say, you know what, I didn't even think about that, or I didn't see that. And so it gives everybody an opportunity to have a conversation about it and see if there's any need for any scores changing or anything like that. We can do that at a meeting. But what we don't want is for just me or Sarah or anybody in our organization to say, John's right, Evelyn's wrong, you know, or the score. So I like to have a meeting about it so we can discuss it, because there's context that we're clearly missing, either on, you know, and it could be the other way, where you're scoring them 100, Evelyn's scoring them 15, and she says, John, did you not see that they wanted $20,000 per participant? We can't do that. And you're like, you know what, you're actually right. So we'll have a meeting. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often. It doesn't happen as often, but that's our way around it without one person coming in and just funding a project. We're trying to take in all feedback about the projects.
Thank you.
So the review and selection process, we just wanted to highlight, you guys are the review and selection committee and team members. We can request any additional information from grantees or from applicants. I like to grade it on what they've submitted. Because sometimes when you give people the opportunity to submit more information, then they start tweaking and changing the project from what you read. So if we could keep it based on what they've submitted and grade it off of that, that's great. But if there's ever a time when you need additional information, like I said, shoot me an email or note it on your scorecard and we can definitely follow up with them. And then this is where we're talking about the notice of state award. We're trying to give them out in May of this year, and then they can start in June. So between now, we'll see if that works. I know a lot of reviewers are ready, and it also depends on your schedule. So if the due date for these are April 1st, which is next week. And so if we have everyone read them, let's just say over a long weekend, it's Easter weekend, over a long weekend and everybody gets them in, we could have the notices out by May. If people need a little bit more time to read them, then we may have to push it back to June, but it's really flexible. We're just excited about the additional help. So we are very flexible as far as, if you need 2 weeks, a week to read the applications, and it really depends on how many we get. So I do want to wait until after the 1st so that I can send an email out to everyone and say, hey, we received 20 applications. Here's the list of, applications that were submitted. And then I can show you your group and group members. You don't have to do anything with your group. It's just so that we have account for, so like if we had any construction grants, I do want to send them over to Norman's group. If we have any education grants, I would send them over to Heather's group. So just, different for DFSS, we just want to see what we get, and then we can kind of see what group they would fall under. If we get nothing but healthcare grants and nothing else, then we'll just divide them up evenly amongst everyone else. And that's also something new we're trying this year. So if you feel like it works, let us know. If anything in this process, you're like, hey, you guys need to kind of tweak this a little bit, let us know. Our leadership and our very large department, we're open to switching things around for the next time. Just important information, the website is always the first place you want to go if there's anything you're thinking about. Again, they're due next week, April 1st at 5 p.m. This is the email address they're going to send them to. And then, like I said, the anticipated start date we have on there is July. That is just so they can have enough startup time. I would say June, July, depending on when we finish grading them. But June, July is when we want to go ahead and do a start date. So is there anything else before I show you the website? So here's the website that we have. This is just a reminder, if you are using, this is so good, I always use Edge. It is a bug in there. So if you want to use Chrome to look, so when you're doing the materials, if you click on here, it automatically opens them. If you're using Edge, it gives you kind of, it makes you like sign in. So if you could just use Chrome, if you're on the website, it would make it a lot better. Hold on, I see a question. Oh, okay. Okay, Lisa. So here's the website. We have a description about it. We have the purpose of these grants. While unemployment was really, really good the last couple of years for adults, actually youth unemployment was still very high and it was still in the double digits. So this grant is ultimately about getting youth jobs. That's the biggest thing. You want to get them in education, training, and you want to get them permanent employment.
Hey, Tara, I'm not seeing a website.
Oh, can everybody else see it?
No, we cannot
No.
see it.
PowerPoint.
Nope. Can't see it.
Hold on, let me stop.
I thought it was just loading. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Hold on, let me share again. What about now? Perfect.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Love it. Okay, so here's the website. Again, that yellow is just telling you about Microsoft Edge is having that glitch. So just use Chrome if you can, or Firefox or Safari, it opens up. It tells you a little bit about the description. Like I said, the purpose talks about the high unemployment rate for youth and the models that we wanted to fund. Over here, we have the NOFO materials. This is where all the applicants can get all the information. So we're looking at the NOFO, and I have it open already. So if you wanted to review the NOFO, well, let me do that. It's right here. I would highly encourage everyone to, but we literally went over it and broke it out today, but it's always nice to just refresh, maybe sometime next week. But we have that. We also have an application checklist, and that is for our department. When we bring in the applications, we want to, I thought I had it open. I want to make sure that we're giving you applications that are, in my eyes, ready to go. So that they have, this is just for us, but it's signed, people have signed things, they have an executive summary, they have told us what the target sectors are, we don't have to guess. There is an MOU with partners. So this is for us internally, but I just like people to see what we're doing. So we'll have the application come in. I'll put the name, the submit time and date, the applicant number, and the requested amount, and then just making sure that I'm giving you an application that is pretty much ready to go.
Are we able to print these applications in our office? Because
no, please don't.
Okay.
Because it could be as much as 20 pages, if not more. Even though the technical proposal is 12 and the executive summary is a max of 2, sometimes they like to, like I said, if they're adding like the NICRA page, which is their budget information, you don't want to print all that out, no.
So with the scorecard, then that we don't print that out either. It's all, everything is electronic, online. Okay.
Yeah. The next thing is the executive summary page. And this is where we're talking about the applicant name, the location. This is information that they are providing from you. So when I made the comment earlier that you should really be able to read the executive summary and get a big picture of what this project is about, this is what I'm talking about. So you'll be able to know their name, their location, the population that they're serving, whether it's juvenile justice youth, foster youth, the requested amount of funding, how many people they're going to put in the program, and the cost per participant will be right there. The targeted industry is either construction, manufacturing, healthcare, energy, anything like that. They're also going to tell you their training providers. So I'm working with Tara's Angels. I'm working with, you know, whoever else on this project, it'll be listed there. They will also tell you about the credentials that they're going to earn, the businesses that they're going to work with on the project, and then the sector. And then they'll give you one paragraph. This is really like an elevator speech about the project and what they hope to accomplish. And then they'll have the executive summary that's about 2 pages. We also have in here, and this is just for, we're trying to give them things to think about to put in their technical proposals. But these are just questions that would prompt them. So how does your program align with the state unified plan? Do you have any labor market information? So these are just things, do you have a contingency plan, COVID-19, you know, contingency plan? These are things that we're hoping will get really good proposals. We have stressed to them that if you are able to answer these questions and provide context, that is a well-informed and a well-crafted proposal. Who's providing your services? Where will they be taking place? What's the duration of your services and training? So these are just different things that we want to make sure they're thinking about. Cost per program. These are just things to prompt them. The scope of work is what I talked about earlier. So this just says work-based learning, who is the employers, what's the wages, and then also any occupations they can list there. And then if they have permanent employers already assigned to the project and the wage rate. I have a question, hold on 1 second. Oh, gotcha. Karma, if you can just send me an email and I'll get you to the right person. Performance measures. I will show you the LWIA, but this is just the same thing that was in the slide, just showing them the different things that we're going to hold them accountable for. If they don't know what credential attainment is, it's right here, and we have an actual definition. So for each performance measure, right underneath it, it'll tell you what it is. So if they're not familiar with anything, measurable skill gain, we give you the definition of measurable skill gain and the TEAGL that it's associated with. The uniform application is what they will fill out for all grants. And this is just a standard form. These are numbers that mean nothing to a reviewer. This is something we will be looking at, but it will let us know what their project is. This is really who's doing what at your organization, who's signing off, who do we need to add, you know, for your budget information, what areas. This is also asking about their legislative districts and all of that. So that's more for our team. The next thing is the budget. I just want to do a few highlights on this. Don't run away when we show you the budget. It is a lot, which is why I let the finance team handle this. It's so many tabs at the bottom. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it goes all the way, I believe, to 18.
Kara, I can only see the website.
Yeah. Thank you. So let me stop and let me share again. I tell you, we're at the mercy of the technology gods. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. No, thank you. So this is the budget forms. We have instructions for them on how to fill it out. This is what we'll be looking at. So really I start with section A, and you will be able to see, like I said, I completely understand if you say, nope, DCEO, this is you handle the budget. I'm here to read it and see if it sounds right, that's fine. But if you're interested in looking at it, they have their admin line items. They have and this is just in school where it says I/S or out of school O/S. It will tell you work-based learning, how much they're putting in. Remember, it's 20% of their budget. There's different things. The main thing I want to show you on here, I tell you, the forms get scarier the more you click. I want to show you, so here. So starting on section C, they will put the salary and wages for, their CEO or their case managers or whoever's on the project. But right under here at the bottom, they have a narrative. And I tell grantees all the time, make sure you fill up this narrative. So it could put, if they put up here, we want to do, if we're on the supportive service tab and they say we want to buy 100 steel toe boots, just let us know down here. We're going to purchase them from Evelyn's shop. They're going to be $50 per pair. Just give us all the information. So if you're ever looking at something and you say, this just doesn't sound right, I would always look in the narrative just to see if they've explained it a little bit more and gave us more context. Is there any questions about the budget? Because they're pretty much the same. They just have different, this is personnel salaries they would have. And then, like I said, the narratives are always at the bottom. If you look at this and they say their CEO is spending 100% of the time on the grant, please send us a note and say, hey, let's check the budget on this, Evelyn. So just
it'd be like, that's a lie. For a seed program, I'm like, it better be like 5%.
Right. But see, that's the good thing about having other agencies, because you all have your own grants with the city. And so that is something you're also looking at, because it has to make sense. So like I said, if there's any other time where you're looking at it and you're like, this just looks weird, just let me know, or highlight it and send it to me. We can look at it. But just things like that I've seen before, and I'm just like, oh, 100%, okay, all right. So we just wanted to highlight and show the budget as well. I'm gonna stop and start again just so I don't run into that issue. Or can you see the screen? Did it go back to the website? Okay, that's so weird.
You wanted us to see section 3, right? Budget worksheet and narrative.
So which one?
The section C, budget workshop and narrative.
Oh, no. So I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay.
Lord have mercy.
No, you're fine.
No, thank you all. It's technology. When it's working, it is working.
I swear, I think it's probably the latest update of Zoom. The same thing happened in Teams. It's
I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the performance measures. Is it showing?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is what we're looking at when we talked about the local workforce areas. Here are the performance measures. So for credential attainment, if they're in LWIA 7, they cannot go below 67.5% in their performance measures. So we have it listed out for all 26 local areas, and we're just looking at the employment rate at the second and fourth quarter, median earnings, credentials, and the measurable skills. So we just want to make sure, go ahead.
They will list in their grant application what LW1A they are, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you're reading it and you're like, I don't have time for this, just let me know. It's okay. We can figure, because these are the details that we can kind of talk about with them. They cannot go lower than this, but we just wanted to provide them what's the standard out there. So so the local area is comfortable with either sustaining a project like this, also so we don't have unrealistic expectations. LWIA 1 is missing from the list. Thank you, Andrew.
I'm like, is there an LWIA 1?
I think the tabs. Oops.
Yeah, Lake County. I'm the chair of it.
Ah.
LWIA 1 is under the state negotiated goal. Oh, no.
I will double check with our performance folks. But I think you're right. Oh, yes, Carmen, this is your department, right?
Yep.
Thank you. So LWIA 1 would be right here.
There are other LWIAs that are also missing.
There are, and so this is done after the other, so a lot of LWIAs, well, not a lot, some of them actually combine. So LWIA 16 was by itself, and now it's under, don't get me wrong, but I believe 15 or 17. So you will know, and like I said, if you ever read them and you're just like, I don't have time to figure this out, let us know. But this was done after we had some LWIAs combined. So it doesn't go straight down numerically. Okay, let's see. The last thing I have for you is technical assistance sessions that we've had with the grantees. So we have them listed here. We also have the PowerPoints and the recordings for those. If you have time or feel like it, you can listen to them and hear my voice and others that we've had. I know Heather has done some as well. We've had business engagement, work-based learning. So what we did was we took the NOFO and the big bullet points we wanted them to have, we took it and made technical assistance sessions. So things that we really wanted to make sure that they understood. Performance measures, they had an entire session about it. Workers' rights was on here as well, sustainability plans. So if you wanted to look at that and just see what was offered to the grantees, it's there. Like I said, it's the PowerPoint and the recordings. And last but not least, we have the funding information, the times to submit, and then the appendix, which has desk references on here. If you are confused about what the career pathway definition is, it's right here. You just click on this Word document. When we talk about target populations, it's here. If you want to know more, or if you want to look at that LWIA map, it's right here. The letter of commitment, I can show you. Did it open for you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the ultimate goal with the letter of commitment is for us to know that they have sat down with someone in the local workforce area and that they've discussed their project. And they'll be able to say, you know, it like I said, aligns with our policies, practices, goals that we have for our youth. And we could talk about that they're in good standing and that they support the submission of the application. So literally, I just told an applicant earlier, you can copy and paste this and send it over to your local workforce area and have your conversation and just make sure that they are providing you the letter of commitment. So you'll see some of these, we'll see these when they submit them. And it, like I said, it just talks about if they're able to ultimately support the project and that it aligns with their current goals for you. Another thing I wanted to point out, Norman, we talked about work-based learning for youth. So I just wanted to highlight this document as well. And these are the different types of work-based learning. So they can have a registered apprenticeship, a pre-apprenticeship, work experience where it is on-the-job training, job shadowing, internships, and then on-the-job training is also carved out by itself. So I just like to show that. We really wanted to have it to where if there's any information that you needed regarding this grant opportunity, at least it's somewhere posted on the website. So if there's anything else you can think of, the performance measures, if you again wanted to look at that, it's here. And then we just highlighted, go ahead.
Yeah, did you talk about the scorecard?
I'm gonna click on it last.
Oh, gotcha, okay, sorry.
No, you're fine. Here's some of the pathways. So we talked about agriculture. Oh, you know, I haven't seen one in architect either.
Okay.
Education, finance would be really, really good. Tourism would be possibly a little difficult right now, but so we just wanted to highlight marketing, TDL. These are different sectors that they could choose from. And last but not least, we have our scoring card. So this is what you would get for each of your applicants. So you would just put their log number and the team you're on and your name, and I would have the log number for you. The team you're on and your name. And then here's the question. So did the applicant describe how the project takes into consideration either the governor's executive order, state visions, principles, the Perkins plan, any regional plans? And you will look at here and say, okay, exceed standards. If it's done all of these things that's listed here, then you can rank it between 8 and 10. If you feel like it met the standard, you would just rank it between 4 and 7. And then if it was below the standard, it was 0 to 3. And you would put your scores right here, and then any comments you can put here. And this expands the more comments you write.
Okay.
So the same thing is for the second question. Did it include any target populations as well as targeted industries? If it did, 8 to 10, and it's exceeded. So they've done something extra. Not only did they give you the target population, but they've also showed you partners for each, target population or something like that. You would rank it 8 to 10. If they've just noted one priority population, then you would do 4 to 7. And if they did not include any target population, any targeted industries or occupations, then you would do 0 to 3. So the same thing, and actually, let me go back a step. When you first click on it, this is to thank you for your time. And then you click on the next tab, which is the scoring card. So we just have the question, and then you should be able to read the exceed, meet, or below and score it based off of what it says there for each question that they have. One of the things I do want to point, does anybody have any questions about that before I point out something?
No.
So, and really you're just looking, putting your scores in the green and then any comments. The more comments you have,
I have a question.
Okay.
So maybe I missed this earlier on, but you've assigned us all to teams based on sector, right? I guess.
Yes, we're actually going to wait until after the first because I don't know what type of grants we're going to get yet. So if we have it to where everyone is submitting a healthcare grant, we have 20 people that submit healthcare grants, then we would divide them up evenly. But if we have some, and if you're interested and say, hey, I would really like to be on the construction team, shoot me an email and let me know. But we want to assign the teams after we know what we have coming in.
Right. And then you're going to say, okay, you're on the manufacturing team. So take a look at this one, and this one.
Yep. I'm going to send you an email that put your team members on there. And then I'm going to say you all have 1 through 5 applications and send you a link to where you can click to get the applications, and which is the main website.
Okay.
And it's right here, reviewers only.
Yeah. I can get in. Thank you, David.
So we would review those particular grant applications for that specific, not like all 20.
No. Oh no. Nope. That's way too much work. I would have to pay you then.
Okay. I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah, in my ideal, I like to give people maybe 4 or 5 grants, just depending on what, but I think reviewing 10, 15, 20, that's a lot. I mean, this is, you guys are volunteering, it is your time, and I appreciate it. And so I'm really trying to have it to where you can review them and it's not becoming another job.
Got it.
So yeah, I really want to see what we get in, and I'll send you an email too after the first that says, hey everyone, we got in 20 grants, give me a couple of days, I'm going to go through them and assign them, and then just let you know more details about your team.
Okay.
But I want to keep it nice and light. Here's another question I do want to point out. Question 11, is the average cost per participant between 5 to 10,000? Is that reasonable, taking into consideration the training programs? So I wanted to put some notes in here. This is not to say that if a project is $11,000, we wouldn't fund it, but we normally see between 5 to 10. So if there's anything you want to note there, just let us know. And this is where you would put, hey, they're asking for $18,000. If they could cut it down to 10 or anything like that, this will be a good project to fund. The last thing I want to show you is the bonus points. So each of the proposals has an opportunity to earn bonus points. And this is if they are doing one of those proposed models, if they're working with equity and showing how this project will be equitable, if they're working with youth with disabilities, you want to be able to note that here and give them 3 extra bonus points for that. If they're working with teenage parents, you want to be able to note that and note that here on the scorecard. The last page on here is just recommendation comments. If you have any concerns, let us know. If there's anything that you felt that was like not very good about the application, or if there's some things that you're like, this is a really good program, you guys should definitely fund this, please let us know here. If you would like to fund them, you would put yes. And here, when you click on line 7, a drop-down box comes. Yes, I want to fund them. And would you recommend full funding? You would say yes or no. So you may say, this is a great program, but I don't think we should fund them fully. And you can say, hey, they're asking for $300,000. I think we should do about $250,000, and here's the reasons why. So that's something we needed, you know, you can note in here as well. Does anybody have any questions? That's just the last page of the scoring card. So for each of your grants that you're scoring, you have one Excel spreadsheet for that grantee. So this one would be, you know, it would say John-America's Angels is the agency, or whatever your, you know, or application 1, just so we know who scored it and what you scored as far as the applicant. But there's one of these for each one. But let us know.
Send that back to you.
Yes. And if you want to send them all at once, that would really help us out. So if you could just save them all and then just send one email that says, you know, I've done my 5, here you go, here's my 5 Excel spreadsheets, and I'll see you next year. I had so much fun. That would be really, really good. Also, the total score you don't have to worry about. As you're putting your numbers in here, it's supposed to tally it up for you. If at any time you have any problems with it, let me know, send me an email, and I will fix any issues. Again, my job is to make this a very enjoyable process for you. We are very appreciative of your time and just helping us out with reviewing the applications. Does anybody have any questions?
Tara, I have a quick question.
Yes.
In regards to the work-based learning time period, I know you mentioned that preferably 3 weeks is preferred due to the fact that in 1 week it's going to be pretty hard to retain the information. Is there a mandated time period for the work-based learning program?
No, and 3 weeks is just me talking. And the reason why I say 1 to 2 weeks, it's because when you get, you know, kids in there, the first week you're showing them, here's the, you know, here's this, log into the computer, let's get you, you know, your credentials to log in or whatever. That second week, I really look at it as they're up, running, doing, you know, whatever job or task. And then by the 3rd or 4th week, they should really, you know, have their task and know what they're doing. I really like to see them a month, if not longer, just because you give them more opportunity. But then I know it is associated with work-based learning and the 20%. So depending on how many people they have in their program also dictates the length of the work-based learning program. We also had it to where some businesses have come in as partners and said, hey, I want to pay for some work-based learning to give them an extra week or 2. So if you see any of that, please let me know, because I like that. That shows an investment from not only the agency, but the employers. So that's really good. It looks like we have 2 more questions. Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you, Heather. Time-wise, would you say 60 hours? We would say about 60 hours, Heather.
Yeah, I don't have weeks on that necessarily, but I guess I'm like, if we're trying to like ballpark and think about, you know, like 60 hours in 3 weeks might be a lot, might not be enough, or I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, it's when you're reading it. So something I'm thinking about is like IT. They may be able to do a lot of it from home and get a lot of work-based learning hours, you know, out of the way, versus construction. You know, if this was during the winter, it's really unlikely that we would be able to have folks outside on a construction site every day, you know, weather permitting. So there's so much flexibility in that. But again, this is where the grantee is providing you with that information and saying, you know, from April 1st through May 1st, they are at, you know, Heather's Hot Wheels from 8 to 5, and we're going to pay them $13 an hour. So that information should be provided to you. We should not search for any information. That's the overarching theme, especially as reviewers. If you have to search for it, it's not presented to you, and that's a problem for a project. One more question, Andrew. Oh, thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. It's a lot, but like I said, if there's anything that you can think of, any issues, email me, call me. I'm available. My job is to make this a very good process for everyone. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Lisa. If any more questions? Perfect. Again, thank you for your time. And I will get an email out to you all next week if you would like. Don't forget, these webinars are being recorded and they will be housed in your reviewer only section. Next week, I'm going to do a very brief overview of the scorecards just one more time, and we will have that. So we'll send that out to everyone that's on the call. And then they are due next week, April 1st. You will get an email from me that says, you know, this is what we have in, and here's your groups, and then I'll send you the scorecards. So the only thing we would need back is the scorecards from everyone. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Tara. You've done a great job.
Thank you. I think I'm sweating through my shirt, so I'm gonna go.
You did a fantastic